I see, Kahi, so unmute your mic. You still can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Just give me a thumbs up.
I can hear you very well.
Thank you.
Morning.
Okay, colleagues, our speaker, Mr. Mkhotla, is here. We're going to start. Let's not waste any time. Welcome, sir. Can you hear our mic before we proceed?
Yes, I can hear. Thanks, Naledi, and good morning to everyone. Can you hear me that side?
Yes, they can hear you. Colleagues, just give us the thumbs up if you can hear us. Okay, there's the thumbs up. Colleagues can hear us. Let me accept. Thank you so much. Good morning, practitioners, stakeholders. Welcome to today's webinar. It's very important. It's hosted in collaboration with SARS. We know them, South African Revenue Services. Thank you for joining us. The topic today is understanding the third-party rental data reporting requirements. We all know SARS for collecting taxes. We know them dealing with tax related to goods of imports and exports and ensuring compliance within tax laws. As property practitioners, we know that the sector is evolving, in respect to compliance and transparency. So these two key points of compliance and transparency, they remain as a fundamental for building trust with the stakeholders, which is yourselves, from property practitioners to tenants, to attorneys and others. The process today, it will be done in phases, and today we're going to focus on phase one, and they're going to give us a synopsis on that, the phase one. And there will be other webinars coming forth after this to look at other phases of this implementation. SARS third-party data requirements, especially in relation to rental income, it has a direct impact on how the industry operates, on how we report as practitioners, and compliance with tax legislation. So today's webinar is designed to empower you with the information needed so that you comply with them, especially because you are contributing to the broader goals of accountability and governance. And with the South Africa that we're in, with the climate, we need to make sure that governance is upheld. So, colleagues, the rental housing, as we know, I'm sure we've read, it's an important market in South Africa, and it plays an important role, especially providing accommodation to millions and millions of people in the country. I see your hands. I have muted your microphones. All participants who are going to enter, even after they were going to be unmuted. We are not taking questions now, colleagues. We'll take your questions after the speakers have presented. But can I ask you to put your questions on the Q&A space at the top, and to also put your questions on the chat box, and the questions or any comments, you can even put it on the chat box. Please raise your hand to speak after the presentations. And note, colleagues, that I'm going to record the session, and the recording, it will be available on our YouTube channel at the PPRA TV channel. You've seen I've shared some handles of our social media handles on where you can find the recorder. As PPRA today, we are honored to be joined by two distinguished speakers from SARS who will take us through today's topic that I've mentioned earlier when I did the opening. Mr. Mokotla Mutiba, he is the portfolio manager in the Enterprise Program Management Office. He's not alone, colleagues. He is joined by Ms. Komoto Lekalakala. She is the process engineering specialist in process design and engineering. Both our speakers today, they come with an extensive experience and understanding into the SARS systems. And, we also as PPRA, we are still trying to grasp and understand, the property rental income expenses in respect to the third-party rental data. And they're also going to cover, the regulatory frameworks, just to highlight on that, because I think it's going to be important. And I know you might be overwhelmed, maybe information overload, but they're going to be here for us to support us in the process. They will break down the technicalities and practical implications of third-party data submission so that, they ensure that by the end of this session, we all leave informed and better prepared to contribute and meet our obligations as professionals in the property sector. We encourage you, property practitioners, stakeholders, attorneys, managing agents in the webinar to please engage them, take this advantage of this platform and interact with our speakers. I'm not going to waste time. Without further ado, let us welcome our first speaker, Mr. Mokotla Mutiba. Over to you, sir. You can unmute. We gave you access.
Thank you, Naledi. Can you hear me? That's right.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
All right.
We can see your screen.
Perfect. I wanted to also confirm if you can see the presentation. Look, and thanks for the quick introduction. I'm also not alone. I'm with Homuso and Legao. Both members will help us in the execution of this process. Homuso will do mostly the requirements gathering process, the design behind this, and Legao will be responsible for the execution, which is the project management in this space. So mine is a quick 2 seconds presentation just to introduce you to SARS. And then from there, we'll get into the meat of this, which is the actual requirements. I must just warn you, because of the time allocated to this, we decided to maybe just run through the presentation, and then we will then accept the questions towards the end. We will allow all the questions. It might be possible that some of the questions might not be addressed in this. This will not be the last, the first and the last session. So we planning to have another follow-up session. We also not expecting you to give us some commitments on today's session. We just want to share and get your input. We will then update our documentation. We will then share them again with you for consumption again, and then we'll have a follow-up session. In that follow-up session, that's when we can maybe start chanting into the execution and maybe solidifying the timelines. All right, is that clear? I'm just going to run into, in the SARS space, our mandate is quite simple. We are tasked with the responsibility of collecting the revenues. And the revenues that will be all revenues. We will facilitate legitimate trade, and we also improve our compliance. That is our mandate in case anyone doesn't know that. And obviously, in terms of our vision, I think all entities have got the vision. In terms of our vision 2030, we want to develop tax and custom systems. And by that, obviously, we mean we digitize. We want to have a platform where our taxpayer interact with us as they go. We digitize, and then we want to also make sure that our integrity is not questionable at all. We want unquestionable integrity, and we strive to improve our experience, the taxpayer experience. We want a better experience. That's why we are having all these frequent conversations with taxpayers to try and assess some of the deliveries that we have done, some of the optimization, some of the systems that we have rolled out, so that we get the experience and the feel, and also guide us on how we can improve. In terms of our strategic intent, we want a smart SARS organization. We have modernized most of our system. I think our senior citizens that could be in this platform might also agree with me on this one. I mean, if you recall the last 10, 15 years or to 20 years ago, when you had to submit your return, you would have a thick book like this. You'll either courier it to SARS, or you will then come to our branches and then submit that, and then we'll run through the assessment with you at that point, or you'll just drop it and then we'll run it and give you feedback after. That has since changed. Right now, with the modern technology, from my cell phone, I'm able to do some of these return submissions, and I'm able to log on to my computer at the comfort of my office or space and submit. And that process, can tell you, it's very, very, very quick. We also improved in our refund processes. We keep on improving, and hence we are now in this session that we are today, where we want to try and get more data, so that even on this rental data, you don't have to, you do less when it comes to the submission of this. We collect it from the practitioners like you, and then we can just put it into our system and continue with our other activities. And then from the taxpayer side, they just see the information being presented. They can either agree or give us more information, and then we move on. All right, so that is in terms of our intent, our strategic objectives. We want to make it easier for taxpayers to comply. I think there's no doubt about that. Like I've explained, we want you to enjoy the interaction with SARS. We want you to see SARS in a different light. So that's why we're making all this effort. And then obviously we endeavor to create awareness where we are not clear. We go out, we've got education team going out and educating our taxpayers. We want to keep on improving our systems. I mean, today we are gathering here because we want to improve one of the leg in our submission processes, which is the rental processes. So we want to make sure that that process get optimized to the nth degree, so that when the rentals get paid, when the rentals get collected, seamlessly they come through into our space, and then we can process them. We do that with all the other products that we want to collect levies from. We are engaging, and we all have a diverse workforces. That's what we are. And then in terms of the data, we want to use data for our insight. I mean, data is all over nowadays. So we want to leverage on that. I mean, the world is leveraging on that data to come up with some few insights. We can't be left behind. And obviously, we are putting all this effort so that compliance can be easier. You shouldn't feel burdened when it comes to compliance. It needs to be as easy as possible. But also on the other side, if you're not complying, we also need to be hard on you. because we want you to comply. We're making all this effort so that you can be able to comply. So we want to work with all our stakeholders, including you. All our stakeholders in today's session, we are interacting with you, but we interact with all our stakeholders, I must say. It depending on what we are trying to achieve at that point. In this case, because we are trying to achieve the rental, we want to collect the rental data, we are interacting with you, but we engage with all our stakeholders. Ultimately, we want to improve the public trust on us. We want a situation where when you talk about SARS, there's a lot of confidence, there's a lot of trust. You know, those people, they collect the revenue for the country, and I can trust and I can bet they are able to account on all the revenue that they've already collected. Okay, I want to move forward. And our ultimate goal is that there shouldn't be tax should just happen as you go. There shouldn't be a point where we open the filing season. There should be a filing season open all along. When you get to the shop, you buy a loaf of bread. Tax season must happen at that. When you buy milk, we need to be able to collect whatever that is due to the fiscus at that point. If you pay into the municipalities, we need to be able to get our levies there. And then you go on with your other activities and be productive. So that's where we want to, that's why we say no service at all. So you have already seen that we are moving towards this, and we rely on data when it comes to this journey that we have embarked on. We want to have a smart and modernized SARS. You have already seen in the last year or so, most of you might have, that are submitting the tax return, might have received some communication to say you have been automatically assessed. So, so what we have done at that point is to look at the data that we've got, the submission done by various organizations on the ITR 14 form, the return processes. We then take that information, we automatically assess you. And then you get a communication on the other side to say you have automatically been assessed. Are you agreeing with the outcome? And then if you're agreeing with the outcome, you don't have to do anything. That's where we are driving towards. You don't have to even be saying yes or no. Only if you're not agreeing, then you can hop onto the system via your phone, via your laptop. We have modernized to that level. Then you can start indicating your dissatisfaction in that, and then provide all the necessary supporting document. We will then reassess, and then we give you that. We are like that. That's why we're saying in the 2024-2025 year, 8 million individual taxpayers were assessed. And then out of those, 98% of them, we issue them with the auto assessment, and they accepted. They didn't have to do anything. They just went on with their daily activities. And you'll already see some of the older, the senior citizens that are used to coming to the branch with a pack of documents and posting them. That trend started changing. They are now going on e-filing and then still doing their submissions there. Especially people that have got many activities, they still go into their e-filing, and you'll see that that number is piling up and also dropping because it's now offsetting against the old traditional way where people will post stuff. and then visit the branches. They are now hopping onto the e-filing platform and doing the online submissions. And like I said, the numbers of the walk-ins into our service centers are now coming down because we have digitized most of this. So we have been successful in issuing the assessment. I mean, we issue the assessments, 90% of the assessment in the region of 5 seconds, and we are striving to improve on that. In terms of our refund also, for those of you that have received a refund after we've sent you some assessment, auto-assessment, in the next 3 days, you will now receive a refund if you've got a refund that is due. And then if you also have to pay in something, we'll also send you all the necessary documentation so that you can also be able to pay the levies with ease without any other burden. So we have processed about 70% of our refunds in there within the 3 days, and we are proud to say those were the correct refunds. And we haven't had many objections in that regards. So that's where we are. I wouldn't want to spend too much time on this because the crux of this thing is about to follow. So Khomotso will come in and then will explain the whole process. And this is where I think maybe you need to start making a lot of notes and questions. We will then tackle them as we get to the end. So Khomotso, without any waste of time, I would hand over to you. And then when you're done, Dika will then just take us through maybe the next steps from here, and then we take all the questions. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Naledi and Mokotla. Good morning, all. Please give me a second to share my presentation. Okay. Can we see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good morning again, colleagues, and thank you for joining us. So as Naledi and Mokotla have already mentioned, I'm going to take you through the design for the property rental third-party submissions as required by SARS. The goal of this initiative is to improve tax compliance by leveraging data received from third parties involved in the property rental ecosystem. Now, SARS requires this third-party data from certain third-party institution or sources to submit the data related to rental income and expenses. And these sources are inclusive of property practitioners, your attorneys, property owners, and tenants. This requirement for the submission of property rental income and expenses stems from Section 26 of the Tax Administration Act, as we are governed by the Government Gazette, or the TAA, if you will. This data submission matters to SARS as it allows SARS to cross-check and verify rental income and expense declaration, provide insight to taxpayers, reduce the tax gap related to rental income, and improve overall compliance. As Naledi has already mentioned briefly earlier, the main 2 phases of this property rental initiative are going to be as follows. Phase 1, which is why we are here today, includes data from estate agents or property practitioners, attorneys, and legal practitioners as defined by the Property Practitioners Act of 2019 that are registered with the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. Phase 2 and Phase 3 will expand to unrepresented owners, that is property owners who are not utilizing services of property practitioners but managing their own rental portfolios. Now let's break down the data that needs to be submitted for this initiative. SARS will establish a new third-party data flow that will be called the IT3R. And this data flow will require service providers, that is you, the property practitioners, to submit the following data records on behalf of your clients that you represent. The submitting entity data. This is basically information about who is submitting this data. For example, it can be Sanctuary 21 or Legau, who is a property practitioner at Sanctuary 21. Service provider demographic data, that will be the details about the property practitioner or the agency they represent. Please note that the submitting entity and the service provider might be the same depending on the status of the property practitioner. By that I mean, for example, if the property practitioner is a sole proprietor, then most likely the submitting entity data and the service provider demographic data records will be the same. Service recipient demographic data. Here we need the demographic of the property owner that is being represented by a property practitioner or a legal practitioner. The service recipient financial data records will spotlight the financial data specific to rental income and expenses as received by the service recipient. The service recipient partner demographic record will only be applicable if a property owner has a partner or partners, so that tax calculations can be correctly based on the partnership percentage held, but can be correctly allocated rather based on the partnership percentage held by each property owner. And finally, we will be requiring the tenant demographic record, which will be listing the demographics of the tenants that are renting out from the service providers. In a bit, we will do practical scenarios of this record, so just hang 10 while we move over to the other sections. Now, to strengthen this new framework that is being proposed by SARS, we need partnerships with the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority, which is why we have our esteemed stakeholders here as being represented by the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. There are also other partnerships that are key, like with the Legal Practice Council, as well as the Community Schemes Ombudsman, of which we've already met with. Now, this is to ensure that accountability, transparency, and representation of clients, that is you, the property practitioners, as well as the legal practitioners in the rental market, is well represented. If you move your eyes to the right and fix them on the synopsis, you will see important internal points related to this initiative. And included in that are the target parties, which are part and parcel of this initiative. We'll be looking at your individuals, the companies, and trusts. So when you report, you're reporting for your individuals, the companies, and the trusts. The forms that are currently being used to report, that are used to collect and report on rental income and expenses, the ITR 12, ITR 12T, and ITR 14. Our downstream processes highlighted, such as declarations, registration, debt management, etc., which will use the submitted rental income and expenses data to draw insights. For example, data stored in our internal database, the A3P, once it has been validated, will be used to identify taxpayers that should declare tax based on the IT3R datasets, which we'll be receiving from you, the property practitioners. Then we will auto-register them if they are not already registered, and reclassify taxpayers as provisional taxpayers if their current tax status reflects non-provisional. We will also graciously require that the property practitioners submit this data on a biannual basis. Our existing platforms such as e-filing, Connect Direct, and HTTPS will be leveraged on for the rental data submission. It is worth noting that for phase 2 and phase 3, Mobi app will be included as an additional data submission platform for your tenants and your unrepresented property owners. All this data that SARS will be receiving will be stored within the SARS AP3 system. And for the detailed requirements and specification of what has just been discussed today, a reference can be made to the external BRS for the IT3R, which will be sent to Naneli for distribution to the stakeholders after this session. So for documentation that was responsible to put together the design that we have, the initiative was supported by the Tax Administration Act, the Income Tax Act, Legal Practice Act, to mention a few. What this initiative means for you, our value stakeholders, is that if you are a stakeholder, for example, a property practitioner or a legal practitioner handling leases and registered with the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority, you will need to collect and maintain rental data as specified by this presentation and the external BRS that will be issued. Prepare your systems to generate and transmit this data. Ensure that the submission meets the SARS requirements and educate your clients, that is your property owners, about this process that is to be launched. Now, earlier I did mention that we will do practical application of the data records that were briefly discussed, which is your submitting entity, service provider, demographic data, service recipient, demographic data, service recipient financial data, service recipient partner demographic data, and tenants demographic data. So I would like for us to move over to the next slide, which will help us to put all these data records into practical application. All right. So let's focus on scenario 1, column 2 together. This scenario involves a straightforward relationship where there is a single property owner, Mokotla in this case, and a service provider, Naledi, who is a sole proprietor that is single heads her own property agency. Example, Naledi is a service provider. Naledi is a service provider that is an estate agent or a legal practitioner who submits data directly to SARS on behalf of his client Mokotla. So in the submitting entity data and the service provider demographic data fields, Naledi will submit her data such as name, surname, contact details, Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority 7-digit, to mention a few. Now in row 3, Mokotla is a property owner whose portfolio is being managed by Naledi, a property practitioner. His information like name, tax number, address, etc. will be provided to SARS by Naledi on his behalf. In the service recipient financial data, which is the following row, this is the row where Mokotla's rental income and expenses, inclusive of maintenance costs, will be recorded by Naledi. Then the last row of this is not the last row, rather. In this scenario 1, there is no partnership, so all proceeds and expenses are strictly for Mokotla. So row 4 will be omitted in this case when Naledi submits the data. And lastly, Debra is Mokotla's tenant, and her details such as identification number, rental agreement details will be included in the tenant demographic data record. Now moving over to the second example, which is your column 3. In this scenario 2, an account of multiple property owners or partners is explored. In here, Pam Golding's property serves as a submitting entity. It's not that Pam Golding's is my favorite. I just chose the name that I saw on the board I was driving. in this, so nobody must feel that I don't like them here. In this scenario, Prem Goldings will be serving as a submitting entity, and Lekau acts as their property practitioner or real estate agent, representing Prem Golding Properties, and his role is to gather and submit the Prem Golding business registration number, contact details, as well as those of the clients that Prem Golding is representing. Now, if you move over, you will see that Kujo is one of the property owners that are represented by Prem Golding. So her details such as the partnership indicator, tax registration are provided in row 3, service recipient demographic data. Kujo and her partners share rental income and expenses. Kujo and her partners here, which are Rosemary and Caroline, will be sharing the rental income and expenses, which will be recorded in the service recipient financial data field or row. There will be a split dependent on the percentage partnership that is shared. For instance, it could be that Kucho is a 50% shareholder in this partnership, and then Rosemary and Caroline are probably 20 to 30%. So that is how the allocation for the rental income and expenses will be split. In this scenario, Rosemary and Caroline are Kujo's partner and their partners, and their details inclusive of names, percentage of the partnership, partnership held, are noted in the partnership demographic field, and that is row 4. So lastly, Homozo and Atwell in this scenario are the tenants renting the property from these partners through Prem Goldings, and their data such as names, addresses, lease terms will be captured under the tenant demographic data. Now, lastly, focusing our attention on the implementation journey that will take place in 4 milestones. We'll start with what we have been doing today and the previous other engagements that we've held already, which is engaging you, our value stakeholders, to ensure that we understand what this initiative is all about. We would also like to receive feedback from you by end of this month, that is the 30th of June, after this presentation, together with the external BRS has been issued for your review. Secondly, trade testing will be conducted to assess the system's readiness and address any gaps in April 2016. This initiative is planned to launch in April 2026 with biannual submission expectation. And lastly, our point of contact for any queries will be the third-party data support. We have provided the email address there for you to use, and for all future notifications as well as the documentation that is necessary for you to be able to implement this initiative will be posted on the SARS website under the third-party data submission platform. So in closing, this requirement is a major collaborative step towards building a more transparent, fair, and efficient tax system. We urge you, our stakeholders, to understand your data obligation in this regard, prepare your system for compliance, and also engage with us on what we could share your thoughts on what we could do better. Once you have gone through our external BRS and the presentation, please do give us our thoughts on what we can do better, and we'll be sure to amend with the suggestions that would have been put through to us. So by working together, we can streamline reporting, reduce the tax risk, and ensure that the property rental sector contributes its fair share to the economy. Thank you. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Lekau to do the closing.
Thank you, Komodo. Just keep on that slide, please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll show it again. Sorry.
But
I'll show it again.
colleagues,
Sorry.
the The important thing here is we want to make it easier for the ultimate ecosystem for everybody involved here. In essence, we want to make sure that when the time comes, nobody is coming back to you as the tax practitioner, or rather as the property practitioner, to find out what is the income costs that they have incurred. And this information, when submitted successfully to SARS, it can be used to auto-populate the return for the clients. Now, the clients can use that information and either agree with it, and we are hoping that given our 90% success rate in the other third-party spaces, this can also be somewhere towards that, where we are not prompting the users to, or rather the taxpayers, to give us this information. SARS has collected this information using these collaborative methods from the property practitioner agencies and other sources to compare and just give an effective outcome to the client, being the taxpayer in this case. And then we get our no service is, the best service is no service mantra, which is what we are working towards. I wanted to just highlight the trade testing in environment, just to touch that on a little bit on that. We plan on going live with the solution next year in April 2026. But if you have attended our sessions before, we actually had tried to put this a little bit earlier, but given our consultation was still not that widespread, we felt that there were still a number of our colleagues who have not had or received the message on this point. We wanna use this opportunity towards the end of June to conduct more interactive sessions. Write to us, give us your inputs. Let's see if we can incorporate. Let's see if there's other ways we were not thinking about working on the solution together. And in that period, when we do our testing, we will have dedicated support, colleagues, for anybody who is struggling to figure out how the file layout is supposed to be built in that April 2026 period, where before the submission deadline that would come in the end of May on the third point there would be dedicated support to make sure that all our new and incoming tax practitioner users, or rather, I keep saying tax practitioner, sorry, property practitioner users are familiar with what they need to do, what processes they need to follow. If you need to be registered on e-filing, how that happens, we will provide that support using our trade testing support platform. I saw another question, colleagues, referring to the threshold. So you would know that the income for rental is usually a supplementary income. So it's usually never just the only primary source of income for the taxpayers. So for that reason, there is no cutoff or threshold for reporting. So if you receive some income from the rental spaces, you would need to be reported in this case. And I think the other questions I have tried to answer, but last but not least, the support email that we have there for the third-party data support. When you write to us, please just subject line property rental data as long as you've got property rental in there, we'll be able to navigate your query and get it resolved or put in line in the next to the right person to be resolved very. But as for our SARS website, once we agree on the way forward, the finalized BRS will be published on that third-party data submission platform on the SARS website. And Asna lady, I think with that, can we open for further clarification questions? Maybe we can start with what is on our chat box, something that I've missed while I'm busy speaking.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentations. I have a question coming from the chat. The hands I'm going to unmute. We're going to give you a chance to engage our colleagues from SARS. Mongaliso says, I would like to find out what advantages for submitting rental income tax to SARS while I'm still paying bond. Can I be able to use tax slips in negotiating a low interest rate on the bond?
Okay, so we are trying to offset the income of the bond versus, I'm not getting that question right.
Okay, I'll ask him to unmute and maybe just let's hear him explain the question. Let me go to Lorraine. Lorraine says, if we have a book of 1,000 properties,
yes,
then we would need to employ someone to just do this. Why is this falling on agencies? Surely this information is to be submitted by the owners.
And it is. So currently, the owners are submitting this information. That is correct. But we are finding in most cases, there's a lot of under declaration. There's a lot of mistakes, if we want to put it that way, overstating of expenses. So we need a third eye. That's why we employ the third-party data. So as a third eye on this process, which you are involved in, you give us that perspective that we do not have, that only now the taxpayer has, and basically can try to manipulate the system. We are avoiding that. We are trying to reduce the decreasing tax, rather the fiscus. We want to make sure that we are levying the right amount of what's the word? Tax in this case. I didn't want to say the tax, but we want to make sure that the right amount of tax is paid for the correct amount of based on the information that is valid and correct. In this case, unfortunately, our taxpayers are not always upfront and truthful about their income and expenses. That is the reason.
Okay, thank you so much. Colleagues, can I ask that some of the questions you send them to the stakeholder email address, I've pinned it, and they will also respond even after the webinar. We will respond to all of your emails. I have another question coming from Motswapuleng. Why are the agencies being held responsible for information that SARS is responsible to collect from the owners? I think you've answered that. There's a similar question coming from Lorraine. Let's see, Emil, agencies are not stakeholders of SARS. Does this not fall into the responsibility of accounts and bookkeepers? Does this not contravene the POPI Act?
Right. So in terms of the legislation, for reference, currently under the IT3B, third-party data notice submission today, that was published back in 2019. I think the most recent update was in 2023, when we included the third part, the donations and trust data in that piece. Under the IT3B, all the tax property practitioners are required to submit this information today. And none of you, maybe let me not say none of you, but most of you, because this question comes up a lot, I would say most of you have not been submitting using that third-party IT3B data submission that is provided currently. Now, we noticed that being a shortcoming because IT3B is usually associated with interest, and maybe the reference to the banks, it's usually what comes up when you think of IT3Bs. So now we are pulling out only the rental income out of the IT3Bs. And then we are elevating it into the IT3R space where it is very clear that this data needs to come from the property practitioners.
Okay, thank you so much. Amanda, you saying when does this launch? They did mention that 2026 and they spoke of April in the presentation. Yes, colleagues, we see your messages. The slides are going to be muted. There's someone speaking. Let me mute them. Apologies for that. Colleagues, can we be respectful of the meeting? Raise your hand and we will recognize you. I'm disabling your mic. Let's go to the hands. I'll take 10 questions before we close. Colleagues from SARS, let's start with Charmaine, please unmute yourself. Let's hear your question. Okay, Charmaine struggling to unmute herself. Let's move Marlies. Unmute yourself. Please ask your question. If you're struggling with network to unmute yourself, please put your questions on the Q&A space or on the chat, or email me the question. I will share with colleagues from SARS to come back to you. Let's go to Monica. Please unmute yourself. Let's ask. Colleagues, can you hear me? Please give me the thumbs up or say something if you can hear me, because I see colleagues are not. You can hear me. Thank you.
We can
it
hear
means
you
they're
well.
struggling.
It's just maybe the mics are not coming.
Maybe
on.
But I gave them access. Yeah, I gave them access. Malis, let's go to you. Number 4, Malis.
Let's try Malis here.
Please unmute. Okay, we're gonna move now. Annalyn, please unmute yourself. You have access to microphone. Just unmute and ask your question. Eugene, let's go to Eugene. Eugene, can you unmute yourself? Eugene, going once, going twice. Annalyn, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Annalyn. Okay, they might be having a similar issue.
I see Natalie's
with the microphone.
on. Let's try Natalie.
Hi, so I'm just wanting to understand, you're wanting us to implement this or start assisting you with this in April next year, which is 1 month prior to the submissions of all of these things. It's also financial year end, so we are under pressure in submitting information to owners. My question is the process going to be a manual process, much like the FIC requirements, or is it going to be digitized that you can send a batch? Because quite frankly, for us smaller agencies, we seem to be bogged down with more and more administrative things, which takes us out of how we actually earn our money. I'm getting to the stage now where I think I must sell my business and become a chef or a housekeeper.
More like a tax practitioner that I keep referring to.
Tax practitioners are just as bad useless. I'm quite curious to know. I'm happy to support the initiative on revenue going to SARS, but it has to be made easy. It has to be made painstakingly free. We cannot keep spending hours and hours in admin. I work until most nights at 11, 12 o'clock at night just to catch up on admin. And then during working hours, I'm trying to see clients. So I'm sure 99% of everybody in this room wants to know we're happy to support SARS in collecting revenue, especially if the revenue is going to be used in improving our country and making this place better. I want to know, 100%. How do you make it easier? Quite frankly, the first half hour of this meeting was a waste of time. the last half hour where the lady gave a presentation that was hell of a confusing, and it did not highlight exactly how the process will happen.
All right. Okay, so maybe let me try and help you with the ease of utilization in this case. We obviously don't want to make it an administrative burden on you to be able to provide this data. So we are providing now 3 channels that you can use to submit this data on. Now, the manual process is available on e-filing, where you would have a form that you would fill in manually. Obviously, that would be for a property practitioner agency that is a small, not needing to provide bulk data of so many rental owners to be submitted in that case. So the second channel is the secure web channel, referred to on the slides as the HTTPS. Now, that is a secure gateway where you can submit up to about 50 megabytes of data in a structured file format. It's a pipe delimited format of data, which unfortunately, it does require some time to build either when you do extract the information from your system to put it into that format, you would have to take some time to do that. Now, the large batch format is called the Connect Direct. It's a system that is used mostly with the banks, and unfortunately, that one is not a free service to use. You would have to buy the product.
Sorry, sir, I'm sorry to interject you, but what you're basically telling us is everything we've already kind of alluded from in the conversation, that you are going to ask us to submit information to SARS, and you are using PPA, the PPRA as the medium in which to reach us. I am quite worried that it's going to be in the same league as the threats of our BEE and all of those, that you're going to then withhold our licenses and stop us from actually performing. This has to be a system that SARS has to create, or incentivize us with reductions in our VATs and things that we have to pay over to SARS, which we do diligently. And as a result of it, you are asking us to help create your system. We're not IT specialists. You already have enough highly qualified, highly competent people in your organization.
Yeah.
So my question is, you are now asking us in April, 1 month prior to the submission that landlords need, we already, as rental agents and rental companies, send our clients a full document that they have, and we then still handle multiple inquiries up until now in June on various things about maintenance and things that they've had during the course of the year. If an owner has another property, my recommendation is SARS contacts the deeds office and asks for the information on how many people own multiple properties. And as a result of that, then query whether they are using the properties for income generation or not.
Yeah, Natalie, maybe just to come in there. Like I said in the opening statement, we are engaging and we welcome your input in the execution of this. What we have shared is how we see things unfolding, but based on your input now, it also calls for us to go and recalibrate internally. I said there will be a follow-up session where we can reconsider some of this. I mean, your input and submission now is new to us. We will have to take it.
What I want to give you as insight is that there are huge brands out there, having worked for a number of them, that use a lot of amazing systems. So maybe what you need to do is go back to the drawing board and go, well, what are you trying to achieve? What you're trying to achieve is to find the taxpayers out there that are not declaring income. Well, that is, the onus falls to the person who's meant to be declaring their income. Secondly, I think what you need to do is investigated through the channels that the government already has access to. So the deeds office falls under the government. And so I think what needs to happen is your various systems need to start talking to each other and stop making the poor man in the street work 100 times harder to help generate revenue for SARS. Nobody pays me for the extra hours I already put in to help clients get themselves tax compliant. I'm a commission earner, and as a result of it, spend more time in admin now that I'm actually concerned that I'm wasting my time in real estate. Every second day, there is another request from FICA. Every third day, there's another demand from the PPRA in terms of BEE, EQE, and actually every system that we have currently from the PPRA through to SARS is onerous and frustrating. Even in my own submission on my tax clearance, I regularly have to submit multiple pieces of paper. I pay my VAT timeously, and I'm sure 99% of us do exactly the same. So I would love SARS to look at a process that actually all we need to do is align to our system or align to the bank, and the information is already shared with you. We do it with our audit every single year. So I don't understand why we must waste more time in onerous long meetings like this just to go backwards.
Yeah, thanks for your submission, Natalie. We will take that. We will provide more insight on that. But I think suffice to say, we are already receiving some of this information. And the reason why we want to triangulate with you is in no different to how we are doing now with the normal pay as you earn, for example, where an employer will submit and an employee will also do the submission so that we can be able to triangulate and see what other things that might have been missed, what other line items that we might have been missed. But we take your submission. We will reflect on that. Maybe let's move on to the other.
Thank you so much. And I think, yes, you did mention that all the inputs are welcomed, and they can also request if there's a proper channel for meetings for those who want to engage you, because I know that you are there to support so that there's understanding. As we started in the webinar, we did say the information might be overwhelming, but SARS is there to make it easier on that. I have another question that is coming. Maybe let me take a hand before I go back to the chat. I see Mangaliso, please unmute yourself and ask a question. And the other colleagues as well who are raising their hands, just try to unmute so that we can be on time. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Hello, guys. I wanted to ask, it's not fair to an owner to have a high interest rate on the bond while he's submitting SARS returns. You see, it's like there's a certain percentage of the income I'm using to repay the bond for that rental accommodation. You see, it's now it's getting lesser and lesser. So, what step SARS is meeting up the owners halfway to say, okay, you are paying rental revenue tax, and then with the other stakeholders like the banks, the commercial banks, and the private banks, I'm not supposed to be, or the owner is not supposed to be paying 14% interest rate, 15% interest rate, while the income now it's gonna be affected. For instance, if you were getting 10,000, now you have to submit. You didn't even talk about the percentage. How much percent? Is it 15%? Is it 12%? How much is that percentage? Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lefau.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the submission there, it's noted, but do understand, we are dealing with the third parties like banks that are providing facilities, i.e. loans, and they've got their regulations and processes that they are following. And on our side, our obligation is to collect the revenues that are due to the country, and that revenue, unfortunately, in the process of collecting, you might be making that revenue on top of the liability that you are having on the other side. But your submission is noted. We'll also take note of that, and then we will provide a proper feedback when it comes to that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe let me comment on the issue of Fidelity Fund certificates fees being included in line to support SARS. I want to assure you that the SARS process is done separately on their own. It's not interlinked with any fees within the PPRA. It does not impact on, the processes of PPRA. It's something that they are doing separately, and they requested a meeting to meet with you for educational purposes, so that you can have input on this, so that once they start to launch, at least you know and are aware, and you gave input on how it must work. And I think the purpose of today's meeting is so that, they are not saying you're going to do this, it's final. They want to hear you, and you can even request for meetings or email them on the third party email. And I'm sure they're going to do another phase 2 for those who joined later. They're going to do another meeting where they're going now extensively to go through the inputs you gave and to find a way on how this can be resolved so that it's easier for you and it's not costly as well. Let me go to another hand before we go to the chat. Belinda, please ask your question. You can unmute yourself. Belinda?
There. I just wanted to find out, I get more and more clients that get emancipated from tax. So what do we do in such an instance? Because the tax that they gather to use for the country is used in various ways, and there's so many expenditures that's not taking place. Our country fall apart. So why are they instating this as well? Now to tax people, they are taxing everything now, and the money that they use there's nothing happening with it. So most of the clients that I work with is getting emancipated from tax. So what is the implications on that?
Okay, so emancipated meaning they are being exempt. Belinda?
Okay, we'll come back to that answer once she clarifies. Oh, she's unmuted. Belinda?
With unmuting. Yeah, they get basically off the system of the tax, not to pay tax in South Africa anymore. So they get emancipated.
Oh yeah, so moving across border. So there's other mechanisms of recouping taxes where the owners have relocated and changed their tax status from South Africa to a different country. So that would not be part of this process, but there's the trends in the OECD world where we are looking at where you need to pay your global tax based on the income that you generate in that country. So I think there's a standard minimum tax of about 25% on the current global tax, what do you call that? I forgot the actual acronym, but yeah, you do have to pay tax based on when you do get out of the country with your finances, assets, there's a tax that you need to pay to get your assets out of the country, and versus whether you keep their status or you even maybe emancipate, as you say, in that case.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Damuka. Please unmute yourself and ask the question. Damuka?
Hi, Mamiki. How are you?
It's Naledi. It's not
Very well.
Mamiki.
Hi, Mamiki. How are you?
Yes, you can ask.
Yeah. So basically, mine is a comment. I'm adding on top of the other first lady who spoke before this one.
Natalie.
In terms of why should we become? It seems like the property practitioners have now become enforcement officers of the regulatory authority, and we are refusing to do that. We deeply acknowledge the relationship that PPRA is about to have with SARS. However, where we are coming in is there's various organizations that represents different demographics. There's Ribosa, there's PPI, there's IENSA. Have you consulted with them? Why are we in this forum at this stage, at early stages, where we are called as a collective, instead of going to them, to the constituencies and this NPPC as well? Why this didn't go through NPPC and it comes to us? We are a united front as property practitioners, irrespective of our skin color, but we do work together, we communicate, but we are in a state of panic. We are in a state of panic right now because at CIPC, we got to do the beneficial ownership. We paid a high price of the beneficial ownership. Then there's the bank. This week, the banks, they want the FFCs. We comply. But why must we comply on behalf of our client? We don't want to do that. We choose our battles very carefully. I will never have a client who's a landlord, and I must run after them to say, comply. They're not my children. I'm not going to do that. My job, like the lady said, during the day is to look for clients, do business for myself. In the evening is to do my compliance stuff, which administrative. So are we going to work for SARS? Are they going to compensate us? We're going to stop this. We're going to stop. We're going to actually engage with organizations like PPI and Ribosa and take this to the portfolio committee to say, this is unheard of, and we don't want to do it simply because if we agree to do it, if I've got 100 clients that I'm managing and 50% of them are problematic, do they then become my problem? And who's going to take the administrative penalty? Is it me or them? Already we have our own administrative penalties that makes us not to sleep. We don't want to get involved with the business for SARS. SARS must do its business. Like the lady said, make your system, go to your commissioner, go to your leadership, speak to them, make your systems to communicate with each other. You've got enough. We are giving you enough money. Why must we suffer as estate agents? And now and again, there's information to estate agents, but we have to suffer. It's high time that even some of us are thinking of leaving the industry. It's not worth it. It's not what it was supposed to be. So I would like my comment to be taken up, and I'm going to send it to the boss. I'm going to personally send it to Jan and ask him to share it with the members of the NPPC and members who are not on NPPC that we are not willing to do this admin. SARS will do its admin. We acknowledge this relationship between SARS and PPRA, but we don't work for SARS.
Thank you. Maybe let me address for PPRA, and SARS can come and address on their part. With us, when we send out invites and webinars, we invite all our stakeholders, including your Ribosas and the bodies of association. But you must remember those bodies, they represent property practitioners, and PPRA regulates firms and property practitioners. You have to remember that some practitioners don't belong to your Ribosas. They don't belong, they trade on their own. And as I've mentioned, PPRA is not involved in this. This is run by SARS, hence they requested a meeting to come and engage. You see that input, that's the input they are looking for, so they can go back to the drawing board and see how they're going to incorporate those. And we do appreciate, I understand the emotions maybe can be high on this, but please keep those inputs coming. That's why they're here. But please, colleagues, this is not a PPRA project. Let's go to SARS colleagues to maybe comment on that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Naledi. And thanks for clarifying. that fact that there's no there is a relationship between us and the PPRAs, but this initiative is not being orchestrated or being pushed by the PPRAs. This is a SARS initiative in an effort of streamlining our systems and ensuring that we assess our taxpayers fairly, and then we are able to account for all the collection that we have done. Like we said when we start this journey, this will not be the first, and this is not the last session. We had few more other sessions prior to this, where we engage and we listen, we collected inputs, we keep on refining. And the purpose of this session is for us to hear some of these ventilations. We want to hear what are the people on the ground saying. Remember when I started, I said, we engage our stakeholders in our journey. So we are engaging so that you can vent out some of this frustration. We are listening to them. We will then take and then do some reflection. And as we engage with all those other agencies that you are referring to, and some of them we might have already touched on, we will engage and then we'll come up with what Homuzo was referring to as a complete external document. In that external document, we will explain in detail this process that we are embarking on and your obligation in that. We will never shift the responsibility of a taxpayer to another one. If the obligation is with me as Mohotla to submit, it will be my obligation. If there's any interaction and correspondence, they will come through to me. The same as if there's any refund, it will come through to me. So all those other matters will be for that particular taxpayer. We won't make it a responsibility of the practitioner to run around. We just saying to the practitioner, similar to how we have done with the classic one is a PAYE. The obligation will be with the employee to submit the return. And if the employer says the employee and so much, and then submit it on the ITR 14, and the employee on the other side do some adjustment, or the employee is receiving other revenue somewhere and the employee is not disclosing, we'll never go to that employer and say, employer, you didn't give us the correct information of that. We'll always go to the employee, will engage with that employee, because there's accountability in both sides. There's an accountability for the employee, there's an accountability for the employer. The employer must just give us that record as they paid this particular taxpayer, and then we'll then facilitate and then engage the employee on the other side in all other material respect. I just wanted to clarify that, but your point is well deliberated and noted on our side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I have the last four hands before we close. Butch, please ask your question. Then I'll go to Zileng Dudu Zile Mutswale Puleng. Butch, please ask.
Thank you, Naledi. Yes, the presentation started off with a slide which explained the mandate of SARS. And in that mandate, it clearly stated that SARS has the mandate to collect revenue. My question is quite simple. If SARS is now busy shifting that mandate to other people, why should the poor property practitioner be singled out for that? Why don't you go to the guy who puts my petrol in at the garage and ask him to report to SARS how much liters he's put in the guy's car and how much the owner should pay tax on that? Why are you making us, the property practitioners, your policemen, your collection agents? I honestly, I'm going to appeal to our professional bodies to take this to court if necessary. This is an unacceptable, lazy shifting of responsibilities from SARS to the man in the street. I'm saying it emphatically. You are using us, you are abusing us because you are unable to do your work. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask maybe Mr. Mpulo that if you know that email of data support, we put it on the chat. So after closing, all the inputs can come through email and you are able to engage everyone on their thoughts and the inputs. Tseleng, please ask a question. Thank you for the inputs, Butch. Tseleng? Okay, let's go. Dudu Zile, please unmute. Dudu Zile?
Hello.
Yes, please ask.
Okay. I think it's been quite clear that the proposal has a huge rejection from what we call ourselves the men on the street. And the SARS objective is pretty much clear as well, that they want data. As a data practitioner myself, I understand the frustration of data accuracy, and I see the opportunity of where SARS is coming from in trying to utilize one of the vessels, being us, to collect that data. But what they have failed to secure from their proposed initiative, which has strongly been rejected, is the incentive that might have to come with that, because in truth, it is additional administrative work. However, what I wanted to come to highlight as well is the key aspect of the digitalization, which I feel is just randomly being pronounced out there. There's literally property management softwares that big corporates are now using, and this is now the artificial intelligence tech planning aspect of it. This is where the actual data is, and this is where the digitalization is. I think your initiative is pretty much clear on what you guys are trying to do and the channels that you're trying to use, but you're missing a very key important sector, which is the digital space. That is actually the one that is emerging, that is actually the one that you should be approaching. So in the scheme of things, SARS do look into property management softwares that are currently being used. There's a whole lot of emerging of them that are coming through that will be your bridge of this data that you're trying to collect from us. It is a declaration of property owners, their income, and all the data aspect of it. So more than a question, but a comment and a recommendation is, in your digitalization initiative, there are tools, there are vessels that can give you this information that you require from us. From us, it's a clear rejection. It's up to you what you do from that. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a good point. I don't know, colleagues from SARS, you want to add, or should I take another question quickly?
I think it is indeed a good point. We will take it back. Like I said, we are engaging so that we get all these inputs, and then we do some further reflection, and then we'll come back. But there's a clear push back, and there's a advocacy to incentive in doing this these initiatives, which we'll also consider and take. And I assume when you talk about the incentive, you're not talking about the money being paid. But we'll explore this journey together and see what incentive you're having in mind. But what we can assure you, we don't want to put more burden in the practitioners while they are doing business. We understand the value and the importance of their business in taking this economy far and contributing positively. We understand that we are just simply saying, through your involvement, you can help us to cap some of the risks that we are seeing to the fiscals. And because you've got some of the information of this property owners and landlords and the people that are renting, you can help us in driving some of this compliance in a much better and efficient way. But we're not saying you are the one that are at fault here, unless if you are also an owner or a landlord in this regard. But we see this as a collaboration effort. We will take all this input. We will see how we respond. In our and we deliberately chose this. In our first phase on this, it might be seen that we are targeting you to help us with this information. We are seeing you closer to the process, but we understand the responsibilities with the landlord. And we will get to that in the next phase.
Yes, and I think as well, we must remember with property practitioners, they're trying to build relationship with their clients, owners and the tenants. So I think we obviously for SARS, they need to take that into account, that they don't want to cause animosity, between them and the clients they serve. And also their career, it's mostly commission based. So I think, but those inputs, if we can take that into account for them so that we don't break any relationships along the way with the entities they're trying to build with the clients they're trying to build with. I have another question, Mr. Mutiba, from Dave. How would this work for short-term holiday rentals, Airbnbs?
Yeah, the scenario that Homuto painted there, I think it's trying to explain the relationship between the landlord and the practitioners, the property practitioner, on how that will work out. And then she presented the two options there. I think the one option will be more on the BNBs, BNBs, and the other one, it will be for a straight rental, month-to-month rentals on that. Unless if we need to rehash that, and I'm not so sure if time still allow. Maybe in the next session we can rehash that. But the fact there is, I'm the taxpayer. I'm going to a BNB, and then I'm paying for that night or for that week to that BNB or the hotel, and that hotel should have been registered as an entity somewhere, and that entity needs to be paying that levies across. But
Thank
we
you so
can
much.
rehash that scenario. I'm looking at the time.
No, it was a question. I don't think they want us to go back to the presentation. We're going to share the slides. We have 30 minutes, colleagues, before we close. Motswapuleng, I beg your pardon. Motswapuleng, please unmute.
Thank you, Naledi. I just wanted to ask so that, oh my God, there's an echo at the background.
Just try. Let's hear if we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to ask because there is a consent that is involved when you collect data from a certain person to the next person. So what happens if the landlord, they don't want us to share the data with SARS? What are the penalties that are going to come to us? Because when there's a what you call FICA, if you're not complying, you get a penalties. So are we going to be penalized for non-accuracy of the records that we are submitting if they don't comply with what the landlords are actually submitting when they are doing their income tax returns?
Yeah, like I said, the responsibility is always via the, it's always on the taxpayer. But what I said also, there's a relationship between the practitioner and the landlord, isn't it? there will be a document governing that relationship that states that I'm collecting on your behalf and I'm passing this collection through to you. So which means I'm engaging with a tenant on the other side, then money get paid into this, and then you then paid into that other. So the information that you will be providing to us, it will be governed by that relationship. What is it that you are collecting from this, and what is it that you are passing over through to us? And then it will be reconciled with whatever that landlord or the tenant would have provided to us when they are doing the submissions. So we're just trying to triangulate that process.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to the other hand, Belinda.
I just wanted to find out also, I mean, the landlord's already is paying, you have to pay that. On top of that, we have to pay our pay as you earn. I mean, it's a hefty penalty to pay. It makes it impossible for us to do our work. You know, we already work, we are already commission earners. And you talked about accountability. So, I mean, the government is not even accountable for the money and the revenue that they getting. So how are we going to be accountable if we don't have the commitment from the government of the billions that they spend and that is not accounted for?
Yeah, and thanks for that, Belinda. Yeah, I'm seeing that as a different conversation to this, and that the conversation talks to how after we've collected this money, we send it over to the Treasury, and Treasury now give it to government, and government do the expenditure there and the distribution. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing that as a different conversation towards this. But what I just wanted to assure you, we are not expecting you as the agencies to pay. We are expecting you to disclose what has been paid to this. I mean, like I said, there's a relationship between you and the landlord and the tenant. So you take the money from the tenant and you give it to the landlord, and we want you to account. And the commission and the admin fees and payments that you have agreed between yourself and the landlord, that will be for your revenue, and you will account to it when you do your own tax processes in that sense. In this case, we asking you on the relationship between the tenant, the landlord, to help us provide that information through to us.
Thank you. Let's go to GNH.
Hi, good day. Yeah, we're not in favor of we're not in favor of non-compliance.
Is there a TV in the background, or if let me see. Bafana, I'm going to disable you. Please continue, sir. Apologies about that.
Okay.
There's someone else.
There's someone else's mic is on there.
I'm muting again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We're not in favor of non-compliance, but as they mentioned about using the deeds office, I just want to add, also use the municipality, because they also install meters in all properties. They install meters to the additional buildings on the property, and also use the rental tribunal, because you get landlords and tenants going to the rental tribunal complaining, and at the end of the day, the information that is available that they can submit to the whoever, and that will also help.
Thank you for that comment. They are recording all the inputs. Mr. Legao Mpulo is taking all the inputs down. Crystal, let's hear your input on this matter.
Hi, good day, everyone. So I basically wanted to say that I can foresee us in this industry as rental agencies and agents losing a lot of our clients because our relationships are based on trust and service delivery. Now, there's going to be lots of landlords, especially the ones that, as SARS is saying, are not giving them accurate information. These guys are going to actually just take away their business from us and just start to manage the properties on their own. And that in turn is going to lower our income. Maybe most of us will be out of business. And in turn, SARS is going to lose taxable income tax from us as estate agents as well, and our agencies. So there's also that for you to consider, where we as property practitioners that work on a commission basis only, we're going to lose clients. We can call it for what it is. We can dress this up in whichever way we want to dress it up. But I can assure you that we are going to lose a whole book based on the fact that we are now going to start to police our landlords. But there must be another way of maybe if SARS wants us to input the maybe a lease, a rental income period and the client's income tax number. And then they can go back to their, they've got access to banks, they've got access to bank accounts. They can go and match that to see if this this landlord, this taxpayer has been receiving rental income. But to keep us responsible for clients that are paying us a meager fee. Guys, we earn a very small management fee per client. For us to now go and do this, I think it is very unfair. We're going to shoot ourselves in the foot, and you're going to end up with a lot of unemployed rental agents.
That's a valid point, and I'm sure they're noting that. Adele, I'm going to skip to Adele. I hear that she also comes from SARS Legal, and there's some matters you want to address on some of the comments and the questions. Please unmute yourself before I go back to the hands.
Thanks a million, Lady. Okay, so I can understand the frustration, but this is not a new requirement that SARS is imposing. The requirement to report on rental income received by estate agents registered in terms of this act has been in existence for many years. So the last notice that we published was in 2023, and where this obligation already exists, and it existed before then. If I understand it correctly, and I'm not very much involved from a system side, it is to formalize exactly how this reporting must be done in a manner that is going to make it efficient and streamline it and modernize it and so forth, which we have done with lots of other industries as well. The whole aim of this is because SARS is driving towards a self-assessment system where we pre-populated, we do that at the moment. I mean, all of you pay tax, so do I. So SARS pre-populates the information that it gets from the various data sources, and it compiles the return on behalf of the taxpayer, and those taxpayers are then auto-assessed. There are certain exceptions. We're expanding on the auto-assessment population. We're not there yet where we can do it to its fullest extent, but we're moving in that direction. And you know, the idea is that no return is the best return, that we get the information from other sources which are much more credible, so that we don't have to rely on taxpayer disclosure alone, but can compile that taxpayer profile from third parties. So in terms of that notice, there's about 15 or 16 third parties that are already reporting on income or receipts or whatever the case might be, amounts that they received on behalf of taxpayers. And as I said, the rental industry has been pulled into this third-party notice for many, many years already. So I'm not sure how, from a practical point of view, because I'm more involved with the legislation, So I'm not sure how it is being done on a practical level by the industry at this point in time. How do they report on that information? Because there is a biannual and as well as an annual reporting cycle in the notice itself. So it might be that the industry is not reporting and that SARS has not been aggressively implementing it, if you understand what I mean. But by saying that, I'm not saying that we don't have understanding for the frustration, but that's just to give you a little bit of a broader view as to what SARS is, what our bigger picture looks like. I hope it helps.
Thank you, Adele, for that. Let me go back to Crystal. Please unmute. Okay, okay, you're winning. Please ask or comment or give your input before we move.
Hi, Naledi. No, I've already given my input. Thanks. We are just concerned, and I'm sure my colleagues are concerned as well, that we may just end up losing business. And in this economy, we cannot afford to lose business.
Okay, yes, I remember your input. You worried about, yes, we mentioned that, your relationships with your clients, your books, let's go to Hendrik. Thank you for that input. They are recording that.
Now that maybe if I can just add before you continue, I think Crystal's view or submission it's valid. We will also take it and see how we can refine, but it's not our intention for any of the practitioner to lose business. But it also not our intention to leave the taxpayers non-compliant. Like I said, we are streamlining the process so that this submission process can be as easily as possible. We're still driving towards having a no service at all. So which means people must just continue with their day-to-day activities and tax happen on its own. So that's why we're asking for some of this information so that we can be able to validate and verify some of the information that we are seeing before we finalize our assessments. And it might be that in the finalization of the assessment based on your input, we are able to mitigate or lower some of the levies or even get to a point where we are even doing a refund. But we are worried of the information that we are getting because we are unable to verify. And we're asking you to collaborate with us in this case so that we can see how we effectively execute this process. So the point and your submission is valid. We'll consider that. I'm sure in the next session we'll also give or provide the view after that deliberation.
Thank you, sir. And I think also following that, Mr. Mpulo spoke about interactive sessions that he's going to do. I think if they were to attend, just engage with SARS directly. Let's go to Hendrik.
Hi, thank you. We as rental agents, we put a lot of hours into the business. We have a good relationship with our landlords and our tenants. And I can show you on record, the industry is going to go in collapse. And the SARS will not get the money they try to extort from us, our people. This must come to an end. We have enough is enough. This thing will not work. You will drive this industry into bankruptcy. People are going to lose their jobs. They're going to be without income as estate agents. That's their only source of income. Why does this corrupt government try and extort money from people that try to make a decent living and income? It's unfair, it's unconstitutional, it's unreasonable, and it's devastating on the industry. I want to know who in the government came up with this ridiculous idea to extort more money from landlords and tenants. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues from SARS, do you want to answer on that? Adele, you're welcome to come in as well.
Look,
No, I think
the
maybe
frustration is it's shared.
Okay,
Like I said,
all right. Hendrik, okay. They've taken your input and they will come back to you on that one. Lorraine? Lorraine, before I disadvantage you, can you please unmute and move? Okay, maybe she's struggling. I'll come back to you. Let's go to Dudu Zile.
Hello. Adele, thank you so much for the response, predominantly on the legislative part. And I guess from the reaction that you have received from the platform today, it's pretty much clear that there hasn't been any push on the SARS side, because if this law has been in existence, then it pretty much hasn't been practiced. Hence, the thought of it now, with all the stakeholders involved, has created a reaction of fear of what this is going to happen and so forth. But the key thing that I wanted to put across is how the estate agency market on itself sort of operate administratively, so when it comes to SARS. And this is how it's going to implicate the PPRA as well. You have positioned yourself as a bridge towards us, that this is not your initiative. However, now the issue that comes up now as I'm thinking about this whole thing is that firstly, estate agency is a low entry level job. And if you're not aware, SARS, there's a lot of job hopping that happens with estate agency. Estate agents change jobs like I don't know what. So one estate agent could be literally deployed across different agencies within a year. So that on its own, with this enforcement, as Adela said, coming into place, it's going to be hard on your end to actually track that administration of properties. Firstly, because the individual itself, being an estate agent, I have to be now the one liable to reporting. So if I'm moving from firm A to firm B, I'm not gonna be liable to do that reporting. On its own, this initiative literally breaks down because you are counting on me to do that. And the way we've been trained is that most of the SARS documentation is done internally. There is an admin lady that does SARS documentation outside of an estate agent. So now this enforcement, as you're putting it, that it's a law that has been existent, is putting in that additional administrative work, which then is going to implicate the PPRA to now track us through our registered numbers to say who is dealing with what property, which then comes back to what everyone has been raising to say that fear is going to be actualized. We're going to be losing clients because now there is this red tape or this hindrance of operation that has been a bottleneck that is going to happen in the system. The key thing that SARS needs to understand is estate agents being the catalyst to this, to your data collection might actually be an error, given the low entry level job and the hopping that happens, and having to, because the most important thing that SARS is trying to achieve is to get the data of landlords, their income generation, so that they can do accurate taxation. If that is the objective and you're targeting the estate agent, I'm pretty much clear that you are targeting the wrong guys, because then you're going to have to implicate the PPRA to track us down to understand which properties we are liable for, which then creates a whole new logistic of a problem. Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dudu Zile. But for PPRA, we don't track property practitioners on properties. They manage properties because we can only do what's in the legislation, and it's limited to up to that. We cannot go and check. Yes, I agree with you that property practitioners, they change firms. And I think it's something that SARS must also take that into account. But PPRA, they don't monitor you where you work. which properties you have in your books. No, we don't do that. But let me maybe go. I don't know, colleagues from SARS, maybe before I move, you might think I'm moving quickly. If you want to add before I go to Pat.
No, it's
Okay.
fine. Move to Pat, yeah.
Pat, please come in. But they've noted that to do Zilene, that you're moving from, and we are aware of that because they do change from one firm to another. So they must take that into account as well. They will look into that, all your inputs. Mr. Mpumulo, that input.
Let
Pat,
me
please ask.
maybe let me clarify. So when you move agencies, you move with your portfolio of rental agent, tenant or owners.
No,
Can I?
sometimes they don't, because remember, there's
Depending on the
individuals
size
under the
of
firm. Sorry.
depending on the size of the firm, there are people who move with their clients when they move to a different space. But the big corporates are pretty much established. But yeah, with small firms, you can take a portfolio of the properties that you're managing and go with them.
All right, understood. Thank you.
And maybe just to add on what Dudu is saying, there would be a firm that has a principal or directors underneath. There's individuals working for that firm, and a principal can fire an employee at any time, and they can move to another agency. So there's also individuals under the firm. But Dudu Zile, I think I will ask Advocate Vile maybe to explain that process. She's in our registrations and licensing on the categories that we have, but I think they must take that into account. It's a good point on that. Butch, you coming back again, or it's the same different point?
No, ma'am. I'm just wanting to add a little bit to what some of the other speakers have said. Firstly, I think the PPRA has a responsibility towards us as estate agents as well, and as agencies as well, and that the PPRA should really carefully engage with SARS to see how practically this can be implemented, and if it should be implemented at all. I'm very clearly of the opinion that it should not be an estate agent's function to police on behalf of SARS. So as the PPRA, I would urge you as our legislative authority to look after our interests as well, and not after the interests of SARS. I know there was a comment made saying that there's no connection between the PPRA and SARS in terms of this requirement. But if that was so, why is it that SARS require our 7-digit reference numbers as part of the information that we need to submit to SARS? If they are not connecting us with the PPRA in any way, then that also doesn't make sense to me. And then lastly, I just want to use a quick example. So I'm a very, very small estate agency. I've got 50 tenants on my books. I'm already paying a lady full-time to look after those 50 tenants. I tell you, if I have to be burdened with this administrative function as well, I'm probably going to have to start looking at employing a second lady now. So I'm looking at 100,000 rands a year out of my pocket in order to support this initiative. It's undoable for us. It's just absolutely undoable for us. And I urge all my colleagues who are online here, before the end of this month, when you respond to SARS's request for submissions, submit that it is not a practical way for us to expect of us to fulfill this function. We can't afford it. We don't have the capacity. We're not like the other 16 big entities that you are already engaging, SARS. You're engaging banks. Those people are big. You are engaging large corporates. Those people are big. They can afford it. I cannot. I'm a small guy, and our industry are made up of small people. We just cannot do that. Please understand that. I've listened to your responses, but I haven't heard you actually understanding what we say to you. So please, PPRA from your side, get involved, protect us, please.
No, PPRA is meeting with SARS on this. Hence, the meeting today to say, let's bring it to you so we hear also your inputs, because the CEO is engaging as well, our directors there at SARS, Mr. Mutiba. I'm sure you would remember we've had countless meetings And our CEO is in support of property practitioners. I can assure you that, but we have to give this information and we have to hear your inputs. I think it's important. And SARS will come back and, just give us a guidance on how we're going to move forward on this. And I'm glad and I'm happy that actually you're showing us the gaps where SARS was not even aware of. And I think it will be, part of their submissions when they go back into drawing up the system before they, launch, or if they will even launch on that. But I'm sure they will write back and do those interactive sessions. I have last two hands before we close. We're going to close at 12. Lorraine, please ask quickly. I'll take the questions all at once. And if they need to comment, SARS, we comment come through. Lorraine?
You had said pet and you moved on.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, right?
Okay, so I want to know how Poppy factors into this. Surely, before I can submit this kind of information of a landlord, I need their permission. And no landlord is going to give that permission.
Okay, I think that question was also raised earlier on that they explained, Mr. Mpumulo, on the POPIA Act. Let's go, but I think we'll allow them to give their closing remarks on those issues. Let's go. Are you fine with the questions? Can I move to Pat?
Yes.
They will answer to that. Pat, please come through.
Thank you, Naledi. Good day, everyone. Right. My comment is that it has already been said that this is unfair, and I think it would be criminal for the PPRA to engage now that they've already called us, and we are grieved as practitioners with all of this. And I'm wondering, why is it that we were not consulted, within the industry as a whole before they even come up with this and they're saying they are launching? Where's the democracy in all of this? And again, I wonder if SARS is aware that most landlords do not make anything from the from properties, especially sectional titles and all, because they are choked from all the exorbitant rates and taxes levy and this bunch of robbers, the banks that we have. So yeah, that's basically what I needed to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Colleagues from SARS, please let's give the last inputs before we go.
Yeah, I think the frustration was well articulated. There's a need, obviously, for a further engagement. I think most of the submissions revolve around sort of similar trend. There's a little bit of unhappiness, and the team is requesting SARS to look at other avenue of verifying this information. We'll take it back. And then on the issue of the POPI Act, I think we've also clarified that it's in the recordings. You can just revisit that. Look, on the date issue, I did emphasize, and I want to also emphasize, those are some of the thinking before we engage. And I said, we are not expecting a commitment out of this session. This is a first engagement. We will then we are sharing this with you for the first time. What we will do now is to go back and then have a follow-up session where we respond and clarify any other queries, and then we will then move to a point where we, based on the adjustment that we would have made, we'll then get to a point where we say, okay, is this new date been realistic? But what I want to say is that this information is it is required. Like we mentioned, we have been getting it, but we are concerned about the information that we are getting. So we want a mechanism to verify. If you are now saying, although we have been asking of it, and we were not enforcing, which means you were also not submitting that information, then it's a different, because we are expecting that when we say the information is required, taxpayers must also provide. That's why I did mention that we are making it easier for taxpayer to submit this information so that tax process can be quite smoothly and seamless without impacting your day-to-day activities. I want to put a pen on this one. And thanks very much for making time available to listen to us and provide us with some of this input. They are really valuable. We will then take it upon ourselves to do a lot of reflection, and then we'll engage with the PPRA, and then to have another follow-up session in due course. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I'm sure maybe the next session, it will be good news where all your inputs you will see and feel in their presentation, or maybe guidance and solution that they've taken everything you've spoken about today into consideration. Mr. Mutiba, thank you for touching on the refund process. Ms. Lekalakala, thank you for that feedback and highlighting, the 30th of June, and also just the launching that you took us through on the presentation. And we'll also share that presentation and just explaining this 30-party data. And also the email address. I'm hoping, Mr. Mpumulo, you will share with us the email address so that we can share with our stakeholders so they are able to give their inputs. And also the interactive sessions, once you start, please give us that invite so we can share with the practitioners so they can join and engage you on this up until, the final stages. And also, on behalf of PPRA, and the CEO is aware of this, I'm also going back to give a feedback on this on behalf of the CEO Corporate Services. Thank you so much, property practitioners, for joining the webinar. We always welcome your participation, your interest, your concerns, your complaints, so that we can improve, for everyone who's going to drive safe. If you're going to have lunch, please enjoy, stay safe, make sure you stay informed, and have a great day. I will email you the slides. The recorder is going to be on PPRA TV. I'm going to release now the colleagues from SARS so they can attend to other commitments, but they are available on email. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Naledi. Thank you all.